Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Real World Podcast family, we have on the phone with us right now, we have Tiffany Powell on the phone. How are you doing, Miss Powell?
I'm doing good. It's a good day today.
Miss
Thank
Powell,
you.
you are more than welcome. Let me say this: you sound so crystal clear. You are not breaking up like you was before. Because the first interview we
Okay.
recorded, we had to scrap all that because it was just horrible, and we're here now. So, Miss
Okay.
Powell, let's get straight to it. I want you to tell my audience what have you been doing with yourself in the time that you've been away, locked up in prison.
Um, well, even from like the county, ever since I was in the county, like what I mean. I just started to get in, into the word and in the church and everything, and since I've been here, anything that has anything to do with God, I join. I've been in the praise team for 5 years now, and I couldn't imagine this prison without a church. It would just be horrible. I spend all my day, at the church, at the chapel, just everybody, even if they're there for the wrong reason or whatever, because they're in the chapel, everybody acts right. So I ain't got to deal with the drama or, hearing people fight about drugs or none of that. So,
Well,
yeah.
tell us a little bit about your praise team. Tell us about that a little bit.
Okay, well, for 3 years I was in the choir, but since COVID happened, they quit the choir. You know what I mean? It was great because like the praise team was just we had outside people, a director to come in and teach us or whatever, what songs to sing or whatever. But now I'm in the dance ministry, and I never thought I would be, would be dancing in front of anybody.
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
But I decided to give it a try, since like I don't want to, I know where my help comes from, and I want to do things for God and show Him attention and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So that's why I got into the praise team, and it's like versatile dancing. There's miming and. I like to do the upbeat stuff. You know what I mean? I'm kind of past the phase of woe is me and all that. I like to do the victorious stuff that lifts people up. You know what I mean? So, and I get a lot of people to join too. I bring a lot of people into the praise team, and I have even in the choir over the years and stuff, and they've taken that home. So I'm grateful for that. But yeah, it's great being in the praise team. So.
Okay, that's a beautiful thing. Well, at least you're not sitting around and doing nothing.
Yeah.
So now, far as your education, have you furthered your education since you've been there as well?
Yeah, I'm actually, I'm looking into trying to do some paralegal stuff because, recently I found out that they might be opening that back up. I have to pay for it, but since I've been down, the whole time I've been down, I've been trying to help people with their judicial and stuff. I've been studying the law and stuff, state and federal law.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm just waiting for things to basically open all the way up where I can, get into paralegal work now. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So.
Now, Miss Powell, we got to get into business. We got to get straight into it now. Now, Miss Powell, you've been convicted of murdering your ex-boyfriend, the father of your children, Mr. James Harris. Am I right or am I wrong?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been convicted.
Okay. Now, Miss Powell, how did you and Mr. James Harris meet?
Well, I met him, he's like in the cars, and so was I, but he had a whole bunch of cars for sale, and he had this 1989 Lincoln Continental, and it was for sale. And me and my brother, we stumbled across it and knocked on his door, and he came out and spent a long time with us talking about it. But he mostly talked to me, and he was just like, this car.
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
Mm-hmm.
He said this car has electrical problems, but he would want to fix it, but he was like kind of off and on about if I took it like it was, it'd be $400, but he acted like he just didn't want to let it go for that. You know what I mean? I think he wanted, just to keep talking or something like that. So he was like, well, let me check into fixing it for you because I hate to just give you a car that ain't got no lights, interior lights and all that kind of thing. So me and my brother, we went home, you know what I mean? It was probably about 12 blocks away or whatever. And, the very next day he was, knocking at my door. I believe the very first time I didn't talk to him and I think I maybe he had talked to him the very next time he came, which was probably a couple of days after he came the first time. So I was talking to him, you know what I mean? And he wasn't talking about the car anymore. He was talking about, taking a trip with him to a school, which was called St. Howard in Akron.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up agreeing to go down there to St. Howard or whatever. He went to his classroom and had his back room or whatever. And I went back there with him. I was 15, I believe. And, we went to the back room and I kind of sat on his desk and he kind of came up between my legs and I just kind of closed my legs a little bit and jumped down on the side of him and we kind of left, and after that I was like really, really uncomfortable. So I kind of, I did avoid him, but there was instances where he would like catch me out or something like that and I would talk to him, but I'd make up excuses, So that's basically how I met him, was because he had a car for sale.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So now did you ever purchase the car from him or did he give you the car or what happened after that?
No, as a matter of fact, before I went to this school that he, was teaching at, St. Howard in Akron, he was like, if you come out with me, he said, we could talk about, maybe even me getting rid of a car that I have, for little to nothing. I'm 15,
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
I was like, okay, and I after all that happened, I didn't get no car from him. He did give my brother a car though, because my brother didn't like him because of his age.
Mm-hmm.
He gave my brother a car to try and smooth things over with him, but it really didn't work because he's still, he still was older.
Right.
So.
Okay.
I never got a car.
Okay. Now, when you say older, you say you were 15, and how old was Mr. Harris at the time?
He's 53.
53 years old. Yeah. So, is it safe to say that Mr. Harris was a sexual predator?
Yeah, at the time I really wasn't thinking about it too much, but yeah, definitely me having kids now and everything. He definitely was a sexual predator. When I was born, he was like 39 years old.
Wow. Okay, so let's fast forward just a little bit. Okay, how did you guys start dating? How did that happen?
Okay, well, after, I kind of avoided them for a while. We ended up moving, and we moved into this deplorable apartment building that, all the apartments in there was infested.
You have 1 minute remaining.
Okay, I'm going to have to call right back after this. But it was deplorable. There was bugs, you know what I mean? And I was pregnant for a second child with my first child's father. I was 18 at that time, or 17 going on 18. So I said, when I have this baby, I'm not going to put that baby into that environment because them bugs was going into my 1-year-old's mouth. So after I had her, we stayed out in the car, and then he drove up on us while we was out, kind of living in the car or whatever, and he offered for us to go to one of his places, and I was a little leery, but I ended up taking him up on it, to get my kids out of the car and that kind of thing. Okay, well, he got me the house, and, it was nice and all, he made sure he had a key to my place, but nothing, I probably was there for like a couple of weeks, and then I happened to be standing outside. It was a duplex. It was an apartment upstairs. I was outside, and another guy was standing outside there, wasn't talking to me. I mean, he did say hi, but he wasn't talking to me. And Mr. Harris, he saw, the man out there with me, and he, was like, let's go inside. So it was kind of like a halfway finished basement or whatnot, so he was like, let's go down here away from your mom and the kids. And that was the first time he put his hands on me, choked me because I was out there with that guy, so that I was leading him on. And then he,
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
And the first time anything sexual ever happened, it was that time, and it was basically forced. You know what I mean? I was shocked. He choked me, and then that happened. And after it was all done, he said, "Don't be hanging out with that man no more. If you see that man, you walk the other way," and just walked out. But after that, I was like, oh, I said. I felt like since I had the place, it was a roof over my kid's head or whatever, I had to kind of, give him what he wanted. So we did kind of have a relationship, but his wife, which I kind of heard he had a wife, but he never talked about her. She came to my door and thought I was pregnant and tried to bring abortion papers and try to say, I'll pay for the abortion or whatnot. And I wasn't pregnant for him. So my mom was like, oh no. She was like, I had already signed up for Metropolitan House, but I started pushing it. And I got a house through Metropolitan and just moved, because I was worried about her. I was worried about him. And I moved, and I didn't see him for a little while. And then he ended up just coming right in my house one day, didn't even say, oh, you didn't even tell me you moved or anything. Just act like he belonged there. And, so after a while, for a little while, I continued to just go ahead and keep the peace, and I was with him in a relationship. And then he just kept putting his hands on me and stuff like that in front of my kids and my mom and dogging my mom and stuff. So I was just I made up an excuse. I said, look, you got a family, you got kids, you got a wife. I said, I can't be with you no more. I said, please don't ever come back to my house. Leave me alone. And you don't have to worry about me being with another man. I don't want to be with anybody right now. I just want to be
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
Yeah, and that kind of thing. And maybe a little while after that, his wife, was in the paper. Well, actually, the guy from Metropolitan was banging on my door, and he was like, his wife got into a car accident. What really happened? Mr. Harris killed his wife to be with you. I'm just kind of brushing it, away or whatever. But I read the article, and I recognized the guy who was in the accident with her, and it was somebody that used to be a mechanic for Mr. Harris, And then probably maybe 3 days after she died, he came to my house, offering to buy me some couches and stuff like that. Said he got some more money, offering to buy me. I've always wanted a leather living room suit, a white leather living room suit. So he offered to buy it or whatever. And I was just like, I really can't, I really still don't want to be with you. And then that's when he was like, you think you ever going to be without me after I got rid of my wife to be with you?
Whoa. Now let me ask you a question. When he made that statement, you think I got rid of my wife and you're not going to be with me, did you ask him what did he meant by that?
I did ask him what he meant by that, and he didn't say anything. He didn't tell me anything.
Okay. Now let me ask you this. Okay, after his wife was deceased, was in a car accident, how long did he stay away from you before he came back to start visiting you? Because I'm quite sure after his wife passed away, he was with his family and his kids and was grieving for a while. How long was he gone from you before he came back?
It was 3 days, but people that went to the funeral said that he didn't even have any kind of remorse.
Whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah.
So you're telling me after this man's wife died in a car wreck, he stayed gone for 3 days and was back at your doorstep in 3 days?
Yeah.
Wow. And at this point, did that seem kind of odd to you? Because, he was a married man and he got a family, but he's back at your door three days later. Now, did that look odd to you?
Yeah, it was very odd because his spirits was so up. You know what I mean? When he came back, he was like, I'm going to buy you this, I'm going to buy you that. He was just telling me what he was going to buy me. Okay. Yeah, I wasn't interested. I was kind of like scared.
Now, let me ask you a question. Did you fear Mr. Harris at all?
Oh, yeah, especially after that. After that, I was just like, I have to do whatever this man, wants me to do. And if I do try to get away from him, I better, have some money and be out of state. Maybe even have my brother with me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Okay. Now, I let's go back a little bit. You said that you were hanging out on the porch, or you was out with a gentleman was standing on the stoop where you were, and he balked you. He told you to come in. Y'all went in the basement. He choked you for the very first time when he got physical with you, and he raped you this day, right? How many times after that did this man forcefully force himself on you sexually?
Well, see, the thing is, it happened every time he hit me. Later on, I learned why they do that. But at the time, I guess, I was thinking, he just thinks that I'm just going to forget about it. Maybe I'm not going to go to the police, or it's just going to make everything better, But he would always want to have sex right after it. And I'm not thinking about no sex. My face is all swollen up, or I'm hurting. You know what I mean?
Right.
And he would just, with no emotion at all, just have sex with me and then, walk out the door.
Okay. Now, at any point in your life of this forcible sex, because he was forcing himself on you, okay, did he ever threaten you in any shape or form? If you went to the police, he would do anything to you? Did he ever do that? Or why? What made you?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Tell me about that. Tell me about him threatening you. Tell me about that.
He one time, like right after his wife died or whatever.
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
We got into a big argument, and, I had my own car, and I ended up leaving, you know what I mean? And I came back, and then I walked down the street, and I was just going for a walk, and he pulled up, and he kind of was like, if you don't get in this car, you know what I mean? He said, he's going to take me back to my place, and it was going to be good or whatever. I don't remember exact words, but so I didn't get in the car. So I had like this strapless shirt on, and he got out of the car and ripped my whole top off on me. So I didn't have no shirt on in the middle of the project. So I had no choice but to get in his car, you know. So I got in his car and we went back, and he was very, very physical with me. But after that, you know, I think that probably was the first time he was just like, you go to the cops, nobody's going to believe you because, you know, I got 5 degrees. I'm a minister. I'm a track coach. You know, I'm a teacher. He said, nobody's going to believe you. You know, just. And I was like, man, you know, he's probably right. Yeah, he has this money. He can buy his way out of anything. You know, for real, because he basically bought his way out of getting in trouble with the 2 domestic violence convictions that he was charged with. It was dropped down from domestic violence to disorderly conduct.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I've always known that money talks, you know.
Could you, you know, tell my audience a little bit about the domestic violence charges? Were those against you, or were those against his ex-wife? What his wife did was deceased, or someone else?
Well, he had a menacing. I don't remember who that was by, but I know it was on his record because. But the domestic violences, they were from him putting his hands on me while I was pregnant. It was 2 instances. One I wasn't that far along, and then the other one happened in 2004, and the other one I think happened in 2006. In 2006, I was about 8 months pregnant, and he, you know, wanted me to come back. I was at my mother's. I didn't want to come back, and he ended up like kneeing me in the stomach, and you know, that kind of thing. And my mom, you know, she was just like really upset, and she told the police. And so, you know, they took pictures or whatever at the hospital. I was sent to the hospital that time. The other time I didn't go to the hospital, but that time I was just like worried about the burden. And at the hospital even, it was just like, you know, we know somebody did this to you. Can you tell us who? You know, and at first I was a little leery to tell or whatever, and then I eventually told them. Yeah, so my mom, you know, she called the police, sent them to the hospital, and she had already told them what had happened or whatever, but I didn't want to like tell, you know, kind of at the beginning, but I was just like, I told the officer, and then they went and arrested him or whatever, and he hired a lawyer, and this was the second time it was dropped down to disorderly conduct again. I think he spent the night in the county jail. So it was dropped down again, and he did threaten me that time to take the protection order off. Mm-hmm. And I told him I would, but I didn't. You know, I did, however, ask the prosecutor to be lenient because I was scared of retaliation. So, and he was just like, okay, well, what if I don't want to be lenient? He was like, we really need you to testify. And I said, well, I'm not going to testify. He said, okay. He said, well, you know, he basically agreed to be lenient on him. You know, but I just didn't want retaliation. So. Okay,
let me ask you this question. Mr. Harris has a daughter who works as a prosecuting attorney with the state of Ohio. Do you feel that she may have possibly had a hand in getting a lot of her father's charges swept up under the rug or reduced? Do you think that, or possibly may believe that?
Yeah, definitely. Because one reason why I believe that is because I remember when we went to court for the domestic violences, he brought up the fact that his children were established. You know what I mean? Trying to make himself in a different light, trying to get leniency from the judge. So, you know, I do believe that.
Okay, because I think the system possibly failed here because they should have looked. Okay, look at your age and look at his daughter's age. You could have been his youngest daughter or possibly his granddaughter, and he's going through this
Yeah.
with you. Okay, so
Right.
okay now let's talk about the trip. You guys took a trip to Ohio. Am I correct? I'm not Ohio, but Alabama. Am I correct?
Yeah, we took a trip to Alabama. Well, he used to like go around to state and buy these cars at these auctions, and he would take me to drive a car back or whatever. And we went to, this was back when I lived in the projects, and we took a trip to Alabama, and we was at this auction, and there was this Infinity, and there was an auctioneer there, a black guy, and me and Mr. Harris and the auctioneer was standing there, and he was just like, "This is a really nice car," and he told me, he said, "You would look good in this car." You know, a lot of people said a lot of inappropriate things to me because they didn't think that he was like my boyfriend or anything because of how old he was.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I even had a guy get down like almost on his knees and asked Mr. Harris. He said, "Can I ask your daughter out?" You know, inside of a gas station one time. But anyway, so we're at the auction, and you know, and that happens, and he tells me that about the car, and I immediately see Mr. Harris start walking up towards the building, you know, fast pacing. And in a fast pace, and I start going after him. And as soon as we get up, like by where the auctioneer is at on the side of the building, he smacks me so hard, and so many people seeing it. And he was just like, "Let's go, you know, we're getting out of here." And I remember, I don't remember if it was that day or whatnot, but no, it was a different time. I thought that, you know, we had seen his sister that day, but it was a different time. So we end up driving home, and you know, and the whole time I'm like fighting with him or whatever. I'm like trying to get out of the car or whatever. We haven't like got on the highway or anything like that yet. He did a couple stops, and I was trying to get out of the car. You know, I even ran into a payphone. So before we got on the highway, he ended up, you know, just, you know,
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
He grabbed me by my hair and held me down on his lap and drove with one hand. And every time I moved to try and get up or whatever, he would like punch me. He didn't want me to sit up in the passenger side seat because the passenger cars would see that my face was messed up, you know. So I just laid there, like from all the way from Alabama to Tennessee, you know, and I ain't gonna lie, I was stubborn, you know, so I got hit a lot. You know, I tried to lift my head up to get off his lap, and I got hit a lot during that trip. But from Alabama to Tennessee, and we get to this Kmart, and he pulls up in the driveway in the parking lot. And then again, he, you know, wants to have sex, you know, thinking it's going to make everything better. And my eyes were, you know, swollen shut. I couldn't even open my eyes. So when I come home to my mom, you know, my mom has my girls, and my mom's like, "What's going on?" And I told her, I said, I ran in a ditch because a deer crossed the path or whatever, you know. So yeah, it was a really bad trip. And another time, you know, we visited his sister. You know, first we went and bought glasses because every time I went to Alabama, he would put his hands on me because of some dumb guy. And we got sunglasses. We pulled up to his sister's house, and she was just like, "Why you got sunglasses on? It was almost nighttime." And he's standing behind her like, "Don't you take them off." And she said, "Take off your glasses," you know, and she said it probably a few times, and I eventually just took them off, and she looked back at him. She said, "James," she said, "what did you do to her?" You know, and he didn't basically say anything. I didn't say anything, but she knew what the deal was. So, yeah, the Alabama trips were really, really bad.
Wow. Okay, so when his sister saw you beat up and everything and was wearing glasses, did she even chastise him about this, or it was like pretty much like, "Oh, this is just what he does"?
No, she turned it in. She got on him about it. They went and they talked. I don't know what they said, but after they talked, she kind of came to me and was like, I guess it was at some track meet some years ago with him and his wife, and the wife didn't want to do something with some food, and so in the middle of the track field, Mr. Harris smacked his wife or something like that. Mm-hmm. And so she told me, she said, I know how James is, you know. So she did tell me that. She was kind of like on my side after that, you know what I mean? And we talked for years after that. She's such a sweetheart. She was wonderful.
Okay. Now, Mr. Harris and yourself have 5 daughters together. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah.
And
we have 5 kids.
And at the time of his death, you and him, you guys were in the middle of a heated custody battle of your daughters. Am I right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Your daughters, at the time, did your daughters want to be with Mr. Harris, or did your daughters want to be with you?
They all wanted to be with me. We had just came from living in an SUV for about 4 years, off and on, like settling down into houses until he would find us, you know. So they were with me. We were on the run from him for 4 years. And, you know, he basically filed for custody thinking that I would come back, but I didn't come back because I was pregnant by my new boyfriend at the time. So they did want to live with me, though.
Okay. They wanted to live with you. Okay.
Yeah.
Behind all of this today, do you your daughters are underage right now, so
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
Your daughters are underage. Am I right or wrong, or they of age now?
Yeah, the ones I have with him are all underage, yes.
Right. So I'm quite sure at this point, because I'm quite sure his family may have custody of the kids that you guys have together. So I'm quite sure you don't have any contact at all with any of the kids with him. Am I right or wrong?
Right. Oh yeah, they just you know, they got their minds made up, you know, and I just cannot believe how, you know, some of them are ministers and stuff like that. Where's their forgiveness at? But the biggest thing is you live with this man all this life, the children, his children. So they, you know what I mean? They know he's abusive. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But for them to sit there and act like I intentionally wanted any harm to happen to him, you know, like he was some saint and they just made like, you know, he was just perfect, knowing that he beat the hell out of them growing up too, and they watched him beat their mother. It's mind blowing how they don't even have an ounce of empathy, because they knew, and I had even said to one of them, like, you know, he's hurting the kids. You know, I didn't say anything about myself. I left. We started living in the car because he kept hitting the kids like really bad, and I'd jump in. You know what I mean? And last time, before I started staying in the car or whatever, my daughter asked me, she said, "Look what he did, Mom." She said, I feel like you know, we could have did something to prevent this, like leave. So I ended up leaving, you know. But the family knows he's abusive. Everybody in the family knows that he's a player and that he's abusive, and he's got kids with students. And, you know, he had a bunch of kids while he was married. Okay. They know this, and they're still trying to act like he's a saint.
Okay. Now, tell us about Mr. Paul Reed. At the time of the death of the murder of Mr. Harris, who was Paul Reed to you?
During the time I was staying in the car, you know, I was actually in Paul Reed's parking lot. It was one of the best places to park. It was the street and stuff like that. It was by the water. He was in his apartment building. So even when I didn't even know him, we were just like living out in this parking lot in my SUV. So, but Paul Paul Reed, when we end up meeting or whatever, he just asked us, if we wanted to come and stay with him. So we started staying with him, and we got found out where he lived at, and here he goes trying to file for custody again. So we just kind of like vanished, and then the custody kind of just went away. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And then it ended up coming back, and that's when this had happened. So he ended up filing for custody again. He got custody of the girls, because I've been running. So my kids ain't in school. I don't have a house. I'm unstable.
You and Mr. Harris were in a 14-year relationship. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Out of that 14-year relationship, Mr. Harris and yourself have 4 children. When did the relationship start to sour?
Well, we got 5 girls, but it started to sour basically like as soon as his wife, the situation happened with his wife dying. He just became much more, dominant and controlling, and so probably I think that was about 2001. It got really, really bad in that year, as soon as she died.
Okay.
Or was killed.
Okay. Let's see here. Okay. On April 28th, 2014, your intentional plan was to have your ex-boyfriend, James Harris, arrested for violating a protection order. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Now, what made you want to have him violate the protection order? Tell us, why did you want that to happen?
Okay. Well, like I said, for a few years I had been on the run from him. Mm-hmm. So he filed for custody thinking that I would come back to him. But when I didn't come back, he left the 5 children.
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
He left the 5 children at home, leaving the 11-year-old to watch the younger ones, and he began to take things out on them. But I wasn't, usually I would come back, but this time I didn't come back because I was pregnant by my co-defendant. So there came a situation where he had hurt the youngest one that we have together, and he kept on abusing the youngest one because he believed that the youngest one was my co-defendant because I met my co-defendant when the baby was about 1 or 2 months old, but he treated her really, really bad. So there came a situation where she went to the hospital. And so, I freaked out. But first I called the police, and I called Sue Snyder at the Children's Services. She was our caseworker. I even called investigators, and I told the investigators about, I asked them if they could, investigate and just I would pay them. But it was a bad area, and it was like, well, we'll get spotted out in an area like that. You know what I mean? They think we're narcs, and we'll just get spotted out, so it's not really a good idea, and they don't want to take the case. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of leaning on Children's Services. Children's Services didn't do anything. So, I got word again that, that he hurt that same child again. And so I said, okay, well, I'm going to, try and do something, at least get him arrested so the children would get taken away and they'll be okay at least, so nothing bad happened. It just kept going through my mind that, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. What kind of mother would I be if that baby died, if my child died, and I'm just, not doing anything. So I, thought about getting him arrested for this protection order. I had just came out of the domestic violence agency, renewed in Canton, so basically the situation where I went to call him to get him to violate a protection order, you had to come within 50 feet, and that whole thing was supposed to happen early on in the day. Mm-hmm. And it didn't work out basically. And so, mind you, my co-defendant, he goes to work at 10 o'clock at night. Mm-hmm. So he works in the healthcare business.
Okay.
So we and him just had this place for about 3 weeks, and at about 10, a little bit after 10, Mr. Harris had came to my house with a gun, and I, at first I'm like, well, when he comes in or whatever, I'm like, wow, he expected to see me here alone without Paul because he expected Paul to be at work. But I only had this place for 3 weeks, but I didn't know, like, you know what I'm saying, that he had moved my location. Well, anyway, he came in with a gun, and my co-defendant had fought him over the gun. I called police right there in front of their faces, you know what I'm saying, while I was standing there. The police told me to get away. Probably was the biggest mistake that I've done was getting away from that fight, So I went up the stairs, and it got quiet, and I told the operator, I said, it got real quiet, so I'm going to have to go back downstairs. She was like, no, don't go down there. When I go down there, he's laying on the ground, and Paul, my co-defendant, is in the corner crying, but Mr. Harris, he's still moving, you know what I'm saying? So the police come, and they act like Mr. Harris is nasty or something, like, and I'm like, can you guys, like, check him or sit him up or, and they stood there for about 8 to 10 minutes, and then they finally put on gloves and checked his pulse out, and they was like, oh, he's not doing too good, you know what I mean, after all that time. So, and then they checked it again, and they said he was gone. And, I really, it took me a long time to believe that he really was gone. But I wish that I didn't leave. If I didn't leave, I could have probably seen, exactly the magnitude that, my co-defendant was inflicting upon him. Or, I don't know. I never knew that was going to happen.
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
Yeah, Paul, my co-defendant didn't have no weapon or anything, like, And I know that, he's younger than Mr. Harris or whatnot, but he's not in the best of shape himself. He's got sugar diabetes and he's overweight. And,
right. No.
But, yeah.
Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm done.
Okay, now when you came in and you saw Mr. Harris laying there, what was his shape? What did he look like? Tell us what you saw.
Well, like, his eyes were closed, but his hands, both of his hands were shaking. All the way up his arms, they were shaking. So, that's what, and then it started to slow down into, like, convulsions or whatever, you know what I mean?
Okay.
So I had no idea that, that he was going to die.
Okay. Now, when did you find out that Mr. Harris had passed away?
Well, after the second time, when the cops put their hand on his neck, they said he was gone. You know what I mean? That he died. But I'm thinking, like, it's too surreal. I'm thinking, like, okay, they're gonna, the ambulance is gonna get here, and maybe, like they do in the movies, like, I just couldn't believe that he was gonna die. I was thinking, maybe they could bring him back to life with the I forget what you call that machine or something. I just didn't believe that. It took me a long time after that, even when I was in the county after that day, to believe that he was gone.
Now, is it because you didn't believe that he was gone because you still loved him or still had love for him? Is that what it was?
I mean, yeah, I know people say I'm crazy, say I got Stockholm syndrome and everything, but I really care about that man. And it's his father of my children, when you're with somebody for so long, you become attached. And I did love him.
Okay. Now, Mr. Reed was convicted on February 27th, 2015.
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
He was found guilty of murder and complicity to commit murder And on March 13, 2015, Mr. Reed was sentenced to life in prison with parole el- eligibility in 15 years. Do Mr. Reed and
Right.
do Mr. Reed and yourself communicate at all to this day?
I mean, yeah, I struggle with that because I'm really upset with, what he did. Like, I know he didn't mean to. I know he was trying to, like, protect us and stuff, but I can't help to be pissed at him for taking me away from my children. Like, my children were my life, and I know that, like I got an inaccurate sentence or whatever, you know what I'm saying? But I just can't help but to be mad at him.
Right.
I don't know. I for real, I know this may sound dumb, but I'd rather take the chance, you know what I'm saying, with the gun and whatever my child's father was going to do than ever deal with being away from my children like this, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, we communicate every now and then. I don't write him anymore. He don't write me anymore. But we might do like a conference call. I just know that he ain't got nobody, you know what I'm saying? And I know how that feels. I feel bad for him because he just, he made it, it was an accident. He made a mistake, so I do talk to him maybe like once every 2 months or something.
Okay. Do he still love you?
He says he does.
When you're in prison, you love any and everybody, you know what I'm saying, that can,
I know.
it's right there with you.
Yeah.
No, okay.
Yeah.
Let me move on.
He says he does.
Okay. Do you believe him?
I do a little bit.
Okay. Now, just to say, when he's eligible for parole in 15 years, and
Right.
when you get out, would there be a connection there, or are you moving far the heck away as possible?
I mean,
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
like I'm fighting my case now. So you mean like if I get out before him?
Well, I got faith that you will. I mean,
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I know I will. There's something that's in my case that is reversible. But my thing is, I don't want to, I don't know. I don't think I could be in a relationship with him like that no more. But I'll never turn my back on him. And I know he ain't got nobody. Like his family even died while he's been locked up. So I, take care of him financially at least.
Okay. Now, Mr. Reed struck Mr. Harris in the head with a pipe. When Mr. Harris fell to the ground, Mr. Reed got on Mr. Harris' back and bashed his head into the floor 15 times. Did you witness this? Where were you while all this was going on?
Okay. So when Mr. Harris came in the house, he had the gun and he pointed it at both of us. The prosecution made up a lie to try and make it look more vicious by saying that Paul had a pipe. Okay, so but when Mr. Harris came inside of the house with the gun, I saw Paul grab his arms, and then they just started grabbing onto one another's arms, tussling over the gun, and then they both went to the ground, and then that's when I walked away. But as far as there was a pipe being involved, they examined paint rollers that were downstairs in the basement, and none of them had DNA evidence on them or any kind of indentations or anything that they was used.
Okay.
So
that's why we always go to the source. I go to the source because a lot of the police work is guesswork, and the only person that knows the truth are you, Mr. Harris, he's no longer here, and Mr. Reed. You guys know what happened because you were there. Okay.
yeah, there was no weapon, there was no pipe involved. They tried to make something up, and then they had an examiner, and they examined the pipes, and they said these weren't used on no body. Even the autopsy said there was no pipe used on the body at all, and they got away with saying that.
Okay. Now, is it true that Mr. Reed and Mr. Harris had fights before the night of April 28, 2014?
I think it was in 2013. Mr. Harris, he had my daughters, and he wouldn't let them go. So I came over to the house, and he just, was holding on to them so I could come over there and talk to him. So he wouldn't let me go. So I called Paul, and I told him, I said, he's not letting us leave. So Paul came over, and me and the two girls, we went to get in the car or whatever. And Mr. Harris went and grabbed one of those curl bars that you, you do, you know what I mean, like you lift weights with or whatever, off the back of his trailer because he was a scrapper. So, and he ran up to Paul.
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
He ran up to Paul's car, kicked Paul's car first. Paul opened the door, and then he tried to strike Paul with the curl bar, and Paul put his hand up, and it busted Paul's forearm open, and then Paul started fighting him, and then this guy came that was working for Mr. Harris and broke it up. So, we reported it to the police. I had the actual, what was said. I was recording it on my phone, but you couldn't see anything because I had the phone in my pocket. But I was recording it. We went to the police and made a report. So yeah, he attacked him before.
Okay, so it is safe to say that Mr. Harris will be the one to start these fights.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many fights would you say they may have had? Was it that only one in the night of the incident, or they had others after?
No, just those two. The night of the incident and then that one.
Okay. Now, I want to ask you this question because this was in the media. And this is your opportunity to clear a lot of this up because you are here and you're on the phone. Okay. There was a 19-year-old female who tricked Mr. Harris into coming over to look at a car that she was trying to sell. That young lady was never charged. Who was this young lady?
This lady was somebody that I met in a domestic violence shelter when I stayed there because of Mr. Harris. And I told her, I said, he's hurting my children. And I told her about, like, if I can at least get him close, to my house within 50 feet, then I could get him to violate this protection order. But if he wasn't do anything, it was just like come to the garage and pretend there was a car, just look at a car for sale and just leave. Not come inside the house and all that other stuff.
You have 1 minute remaining.
She, like I said, she was somebody I met at the shelter, and that's the way I was going to get him arrested for violating the protection order because I don't know if he would have exactly trusted me to come to a strange location. So.
Okay. Ms. Powell, is it true that Mr. Harris's 28-year-old son and your 5 children were in the vehicle, were outside in the driveway waiting in the car while all of this was going on?
I found out afterwards that had happened, and that, is another reason why I believe, because he leaves these children alone all the time. Why didn't you leave them alone that time? It's because you knew, that I was trying to get the children taken away from him. So he brought the children with him, because he was a little leery about what was going on. But that was true, though. I found out after the fact that they were all together in the car.
Okay. What was your reactions like when you...
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
When you saw your children in that car as the police and ambulance and everybody was arriving at the same time, what was your reactions to that?
Well, I think I only seen one of my children, and oh my gosh, I was devastated because I didn't know that they were there. I just couldn't believe it. I was absolutely devastated, and I was just hoping that they would take Mr. Harris to the hospital and revive him,
Okay. Now, at any time, did your children try to get to you or run to you, or they had you totally separated from your children?
They didn't even see me. So, yeah, I seen one of my children, but my children didn't see me.
Okay. All right. Now, when you got to the police station, were you immediately charged then, or they released you and charged you later?
They didn't charge. I was there for some hours. They didn't charge me right away, and then they sent me to the county jail under obstructing justice and nothing else. And then it was a couple days later when they indicted me on a murder charge.
Okay. And now this is something serious I want to ask you. At any given point in time, do you think that Mr. Harris's daughter had something to do with the way that you were convicted, or charged, convicted, and sentenced?
Absolutely, I do. I do. I mean, they were rooting for the worst for me to happen, but it was one thing after another in my case, and the judge wouldn't allow certain things to be brought up. There was absolutely no talk allowed about the history of me and Mr. Harris. So the jury didn't know anything about that. The only thing they really knew was that I stayed in a domestic violence shelter a few times where I met this girl, because they had to say, hey, where did you meet this girl at? So that was able to come out. But when I got on the stand and I tried to bring out stuff, they kept sidebarring, and so I wasn't allowed to use a battered women syndrome defense in protecting my children. I wasn't allowed to talk about it. They weren't allowed to know about, the history of Mr. Harris's criminal record and him selling crack cocaine to police officers 3 times, and the domestic violence. Well, they did bring that up, but anything else, his rap sheet was really, really long, and they just wanted to make it like he was a saint and try to lie and say he had 10 children when honestly he has 15, but he has children with some of his students because he was a teacher. And so they just try to mask everything, you know what I mean? And I believe that she played a big part in, me having a very unfair trial. I had an attorney look at my case not too long ago, and it was that she couldn't believe how unfair my trial was. And she said that by me trying to bring up anything when I was having a trial, about domestic violence and that, and that kind of thing, it pissed the family off, and mainly the one that, that's in the system. So it was a retaliation type thing, and why, I got stroked, so.
Now, let me ask you this. At any given point in time, has it ever been brought up that Mr. Harris' daughter works as a prosecuting attorney in Ohio, for the state of Ohio?
No, it wasn't brought up at all.
Okay. Now, to your knowledge, is she still working as a prosecuting attorney in the state of Ohio?
Yes. I had even heard that, that she was a judge now.
She's a judge now. Do you feel at any point in time that while you're filing for appeals or trying to file paperwork to get everything done, do you feel that this woman is gumming up the process? Like I said, we're just speculating here, but we don't really know. But do you think that?
Yeah, I actually do, and it's even scared off a couple of attorneys from working on my case. So yes, I do. I know she's following up on it. Trying to watch my every move and that kind of thing. And I just, part of me is like, I don't understand because I know she knows how her father was. You know what I'm saying? And I just, well, I understand it's your father, but you can't completely just think that he was the same when you know how he was because you grew up with him.
Okay.
But I understand, again, that's her dad. You're always going to be protective over your family, but it's not, I know she knows, that what the courts made it out to be, it was not true. It was not planned. I didn't know.
Now, let me ask you this, okay? Now, your children that you have with Mr. Harris, once again, okay, they're being taken care of by his side of the family.
Right.
I'm quite sure that those little girls look just like you or resemble you in a lot of ways because you are the mother. Do you?
Yeah.
How do you know what type of relationship? I'm quite sure you don't because you've been locked up. But have you heard about any relationship that she may have with your kids or anything?
I'm not. I don't think she has too much of a relationship with my kids, but they are with another part of the family that is. They won't let my children see me. So, yeah. So, yeah. But as far as her, I don't think she has anything to do with them anymore. You know what I mean?
Okay. Now let me ask you this: you did have a child outside of Mr. Harris before you met him, right?
I had 2 children. Yeah.
Two. Okay, 2. Okay. So that's why it's always good to go to the source to get everything right because the media labeled
Right.
it as one.
Okay. Between the age of like 14 and 18, I had 2 children. I was with somebody else. It was one of the reasons why I kept avoiding Mr. Harris.
Right.
But I had 2 children when I was a teenager.
Okay. The 2 children that you have before Mr. Harris, do those children have a relationship with their siblings from Mr. Harris?
No, I don't believe they do.
Okay. Now, wow, that's sad for them to hold the siblings away from their siblings. That's not good.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing here, okay? Now, Mr. Reed, he took the stand and testified against his lawyer's advice that he was the one that killed Mr. Harris, and you had nothing to do with that. He got on stand for you and testified that there's no type of evidence there that you did anything. So they're trying to say you set the call up, set it up to happen with the young 19-year-old girl. That's what I got out of it from the media, that by you using this 19-year-old girl to call, they're saying that you set it up to have him ambushed. Is that true? Did you do that?
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
Not for no ambush. Nobody was even supposed to, you know what I'm saying, come in contact with each other. So no, that's definitely a lie.
Mm-hmm. So basically, what all this is what it boils down to from reading. I read some of the paperwork from from Mr. Reed down to you. That basically this seemed like this was a mistake. They should not have had a freak accident, and just they end up bumping heads. And this is what happened because you wanted him to violate his order of protection, his PPO. You wanted him to violate that so you can get your children. And it just it went for the worst. Now let me ask you this question: do you feel bad for that part of the situation happening? Do you feel bad for that?
Absolutely, I feel horrible about it. But it all boils down to, I just was worried about my baby dying. That was the main issue. It was becoming really bad with her, and I just couldn't turn my back on her.
Okay, and that's understandable. Now, we pretty much touched down on key pieces of what happened here and how it went down. And I really want to thank you, Miss
You
Powell,
have 1 minute remaining.
for coming on the show and sharing your side of the truth with my audience. Now I have one more thing to ask of you. After we run the show, I have a show coming up. It's called You Be the Judge. And on You Be the Judge is a live stream where the audience can ask you questions and I read them to you. Would you mind? Are you willing to be a part of that?
Yeah, sure.